covenant to a force that guarantees blessing. And that is why, whether the devil likes it or not, your generation shall be blessed.
There's something unique inside of you, and wherever you go, just know that God did not create a nonsense in you.
The will of God cannot take you where the grace of God cannot sustain you.
This season that we have entered, as we prepare for what is about to come, there are graces, there are anointings that God will be releasing into the earth again. I'm talking of radical tonal anointings.
From 2008.
2008, that's
2008.
about 11 years.
11 years, yeah.
So you've actually been here from the very inception of IFOV.
Exactly.
So what can you say about IFOV from inception to date?
I think, number one, the first thing is that the IFOV is always getting better. Year by year, it's always getting better. Number two is that, coming here and just, meeting with, all Word Assembly members, our brothers and sisters from everywhere, it's something that is good for us. It's something that has inspired us, and it's something we look forward to every year.
When you talk about by my spirit, like you know that the Bible says in Zechariah 4:6, it's not by power, it's not by might, but by my spirit. Everything we are doing in the kingdom should be by the leading of the Holy Spirit. Whatever experience we want to have, when we align with the Spirit of God, it's going to lead us. And like the Bible says in the book of John, chapter 8, that he that walks after me will not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. There's no way we are going to walk after him if we don't relate with the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit is really the power behind the kingdom and the believer's life. And that's what I expect that everybody will take away from it, so that by next time when we come, there will be wonderful testimonies about the experience the Holy Spirit is going to be giving us in the next 1 year.
Thank you so very much, sir. It's been wonderful having you, and I hope to see you again next year, sir.
Special grace of God, you guys has not come.
Thank you very much, sir. Do have a wonderful. So what are you expecting?
Well, for me, I know all my expectations will be met, because I've always had this encounter whenever I come into Word Assemblies, or better still, since I joined Word Assembly, it has been from glory to glory. So I know that which I'm going to encounter, it's definitely what I can say. Eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, neither has it come into the heart of any man. So it's not something that can be explained, it's something that can only be experienced. It's not something that can be taught, it can only be caught. So I know I'm really in for a great time.
Okay, that's good, that's wonderful. Host us excellently. Good stuff. Good. Is this your very first IFOV?
No, not at all. I was here last year, the year before last 2 years,
Okay, so this should be like your 5th edition, right? Okay, so what have you noticed over the years of all the other programs?
Basically, I believe that the intensity of the speakers, of the word of the speakers, have grown exponentially. Like the blessing has just continued growing and growing and growing and growing. If there was a gauge we could use to measure it, I'm telling you, truly would tell you.
Exactly, same. Just like I said earlier, it just keeps getting bigger and better and more explosive. Is this your very first IFOV?
No, this is my 4th IFOV.
The 4th IFOV. So tell us, how has the experience been?
IFOV has been a very, very interesting one. From the very first one I attended till this one, it's been awesome. It's just been like moving from one stage to the other.
From grace to grace, you will say?
Yeah, sure. From grace to grace.
I titled this talk, Building a Business from the Ground Up. That is the best way to go. Because so many people do not know how to manage money. You need to learn how to manage money before big money begins to come into your hands. If you don't, you will lose it. That's what happened to us in 2009. We made money, we lost it, because of course we didn't know how to manage money. But this time around, it was a different thing. We printed flyers to sell those 120 plots of land. We started distributing the flyer. Chairman was the person distributing. It is equally not the time to hire people. Do the work yourself. There will come a time where you can hire people. But in that beginning time, do the work yourself.
Hello, good evening, guys. I'm DJ Penny from Abuja branch. I'll be a foundational member of Word Assembly from Warri branch to Abuja branch. My take on to this service was that the preacher gave the word so sound, and I bless God for the word that came to me. And IFOV 10 has been a blessing from the leadership summit down to this evening session. I just want to bless God for this church and for this platform they've given to us. Thank you very much.
Connected by covenant to a force that guarantees blessing, and that is why, whether the devil likes it or not, your generation shall be blessed.
There's something unique inside of you, and wherever you go, just know that God did not create a nonsense in you.
The will of God cannot take you where the grace of God cannot sustain you.
This season that we have entered, as we prepare for what is about to come, there are graces, there are anointings that God will be releasing into the earth again. I'm talking of radical turner anointings.
When you see me dance, I dance like a winner. Yahweh, you are gracious, gracious to me. There's no like you, there's no like you, Jesus. There's no like you. There's no like you. You're the only living God. There's no like you. There's no like you. You are gracious, Lord. You are gracious to me. There's no like you. Nobody can be like you. Jesus, we worship you. Hey, you are the only. There is no like you. Paladeka Prana Sukaya Dela. There is no Paladena Hayat. Hey, every other goes and dead goes. Oh, you are the only living God. So we come to worship you, Jesus. Your name is Yahweh. Oh, so come, brother, Daddy, Gabriel, oh, son of the God. Yeah. For the last time, there's no like you, Jesus. None like you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Gracious to me. You are gracious to me. Lord, you are gracious to me. You are gracious to me. When every other thing was against me, Lord, gracious to me. It was only you that I cried unto and you delivered me, Lord. Celebrate Jesus in the house. Glory, 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 glory. His name is Yahweh. You know, break it down. If you have never been to a theological seminary before, IFOV 13 is a complete theological seminary. So welcome to Bible school. Because by the time you leave here in these 5 days, you will not only be transformed, but you are going to be a transformer. So this day forever, nobody loves me like you do. You are the same, yesterday, today, forever. Nobody love me like you do. Almighty just and never give him thanks and praise. You'd never change. Yesterday, today, forever. Nobody love me like you do. Almighty just will give thanks and praise to you. Only you are the same. You are the same. Yesterday, today, forever. He can never change. Nobody is like you. Zooby, zooby, da, ba, baby. You never change. Give thanks and praise. Today, forever. That's why we are here. Nobody loves me like you. Take it again, take it again. You are the same. Yesterday, today, forever. So, nobody is like you. Nobody can love me like you do. You never change. Yesterday, today, forever. Nobody loves me like you. So I say, give thanks and praise to His holy name. One more time, we love and give thanks. What I say? You are the living God. Almighty God, you love me forever. Say you are the living God. Forever, ever, 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 ever. And ever you say you are the living God. I may not see nobody else. I can't take your place in my life. I say me say you are the living God. Rock it on. celebrate Jesus.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Are we having a good time? Or are we having a great time? Good or great, which are we having? Good or great, which are we having? Please, let's put our hands together for ourselves once again. And welcome to IFOV Day 3. This is our business summit. And I ask, are you ready to be richly impacted? Are you ready? Are we ready to be richly impacted? Okay, we have our first speaker here in the person of Dr. Amechi Ndili. I'll simply just read out a little bit of who Dr. Amechi Ndili is. Dr. Amechi Ndili is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Lionstone Group and Golden Tulip West African Hospitality Group. This is a premier investment and holding company operating in the West African region with a number of subsidiaries focused on oil and gas, hotels, hospitality, healthcare, and real estate. Golden Tulip West Africa is a premier owner and operator of luxury and super luxury hotels in West African region with over 1,200 rooms cut across Kumasi, Accra, Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Warri. Through his investments in Lionstone Energy and Marine Services and Golden Tulip, Lionstone Group has become one of the largest operators of lift boats and hospitality assets in West Africa. Let me tell you a little bit about the person. He used to be an investment banker some time back with First Boston in New York from 1991 through 1995, and he was the director of developments for the Hornsea Trust, a UK-based social housing developer and a development manager at Westbury Homes. Dr. Amechi Ndili has an MBA from the Watson School, University of Pennsylvania, and an MSc from the University of Bath, UK. He also has a BSc and an MSc in architecture. Dr. Amechi is an adjunct professor in corporate finance and real estate at the Lagos Business School. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me. Let's all stand and welcome our speaker this morning, Dr. Amechi Ndili. Please let's put our hands together for Dr. Amechi. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I want to start by thanking you for inviting me to come and speak to you. Sir, I am deeply honored by this opportunity to talk about life, about opportunities in Africa and West Africa, maybe even a little bit about my own life story, if you don't mind. So I think I have roughly an hour. Okay, so I will possibly speak for about 30 to 45 minutes, and then I'll throw it open to questions. So what I will say is I will start, maybe spend 5 minutes on my own personal journey. Then I will go into what I think it takes to be successful in life. Okay, and this will not necessarily be church related, but I think there will be principles that you should become aware of, especially the young people as you progress in your career, or in your profession or in your business life or whatever. So I'll touch upon that really briefly. Then I would like to touch upon the opportunities in the marketplace that I see, and how young people can harness or take advantage of these opportunities. And then maybe I'll come back to the Bible and talk about some key personalities in the Bible and how they saw opportunity, even though it may not necessarily be apparent in their storyline. And then we can throw it open to questions. Is that all right? Okay, good. So I start with my own personal journey. Please sit down. Thank you so much. So I start with my own personal journey. I grew up, I had two lives when I was growing up, I do have to say. One part of my life was extraordinarily privileged, and the other half of it was poor. Okay, so why do I say it was privileged? I was born into a privileged home. I will not tell you without doubt. My father used to be the vice chancellor of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, when there were only 6, 7, or 8, or 9 universities in the whole country. And so if you were at that level in the academic world, you were close to being a minister or a governor or something really high up in society. And so I lived that way for a while. I didn't have a care in the world. I took advantage of my parents' position in society. And then one day the job disappeared. Those days the military used to fire senior people by radio. Yeah, so you would just turn on the news and you would hear that you've been relieved of your position. And that's exactly what happened to my parents, okay? So from living in a mansion, we moved to the village. I'm from Asaba. We moved to the village, and from having stewards and cooks and all those kind of things, we didn't have meat in the pot. And the change was overnight. It was drastic. And one week you were up there, the next week you were nowhere. At that time, I was a university student, and in many ways, that event that happened to my parents altered my life. So, my dad wasn't a corrupt public official. He's still alive. He wasn't a corrupt public official, so we had no money. Fortunately for me at that time, I had, even though I was on the party scene, if you like, I had some measure of academic performance and intelligence. So I had won a scholarship to Columbia University, not a scholarship, a fellowship to Columbia University, a travel fellowship, exchange fellowship. So I went for 6 months. I convinced my dad to let me go. And I remember that trip. We had moved to Asaba, so he drove me to Onitsha. I got on a night bus. I do have to tell you that that was my first experience on a bus. Before that, I used to wonder, who are these people who get on buses? Really, I mean, why would they? But I got on a bus, a night bus, a Kennedy Lichukwu those days. I don't think they exist now. That bus brought me to Lagos overnight. I went to the US Embassy, got a visa. I was on the plane the next day. Those days, they give you the visa the same day. I was on the plane that night to New York. When I got to New York, I went to Columbia University, enrolled, but I never really went to the classes. So I went and found a job. I was washing cars. I was in a car wash, washing cars at 125th Street and 12th Avenue. That's where the car wash was. And opposite the car wash was a nightclub called the Cotton Club. It became famous in movies after a while. So I would wash cars during the day, and in the night I would go and serve as a waiter at the Cotton Club. In fact, I remember my first night serving there. And I went there, some lady asked me for iced tea. Iced tea, can I have some iced tea? I had never heard of iced tea before. I went and brought an ashtray. She was like, oh, it looks like you're from Africa, huh? I said, yeah, Mandingo, Africa, I need an iced tea. Say after me, Long Island iced tea. So that was my introduction to America. I worked for 6 months. I went to school skeletally just to maintain the hours. And at the end of my time, I got on a plane and I came back. I had saved all the dollars that I had made in this job, and I converted it. Those days, the conversion came to 37,600 naira. I remember that number clearly. I went back to Asaba and I handed it over to my dad. And that's how my siblings went to school. It was the first time in my life I was ever responsible for anything. Before that, I couldn't care. I couldn't give a damn. But that altered my life and taught me that responsibility was important, okay? And that when the chips are down, okay, it is people who choose to shoulder responsibility that get counted upon. Okay. So I was young. The next day, I went back to my dad after I had given him the money. I said, please give me a little bit of that money so I can go back to school and complete my degree at the University of Nigeria. And my dad said, oh, you didn't keep anything for yourself? I gave you everything I got. So that's how I went back to UNN. I was studying architecture at the time, completed my degree, and then came and did my youth service here in Lagos. And then I got admission to a university in the UK, the University of Bath, and then I went, and then one thing led to another. While I was in the university in the UK, I realized that my architecture degree was incomplete without understanding the rudiments of business. So at that time, I asked around, what's the best business school in the world at the time? I was told the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. So for those who are interested in finance, so I applied. I was lucky, I got in, and the rest is history. From there, I became an investment banker in New York, doing mergers and acquisitions, and then I worked for McKinsey and Company. And before I was 33, I had become a managing director at GE Capital Real Estate, the world's largest investment company. And I will come to some of the things that led to that. After September 9/11, I started thinking about coming back to Nigeria for a variety of reasons. But it was important to me that, that I came back and that I made my own investments and that I impacted the lives of young people, and that hopefully in my life, as I lead it, that I would have some measure of positive impact on young people, and that I may, hopefully, if God is on my side, set a positive example for people. I did come back because I thought that I would be more effective in my own home, making this sort of, at the time I was working for GE Capital, I was making a salary, I was making some income, but he was doing his entrepreneurial work. And he kept saying to me, listen, invest in this thing that I'm doing, one day it will turn out well. I really had no idea what it was. I just know the company was called Mobile Shift. I think if you Google, you'll find it somewhere. Mobile Shift was the precursor. Mobile Shift started the whole mobile money, mobile banking thing way before even smartphones got into people's pockets. My kid brother was already thinking about this. A buyer for my technology. And what do you think? Should I sell it? I said, if it makes money, you should sell it. And then one day he calls me and says, what's your bank account number? I've sold the thing and you have 50% of the profits. I never wrote a contract with my brother. We never had a written agreement. I never really did it because I anticipated there would be money in it. I did it because he was my kid brother. And that formed the seed capital for which I started here in West Africa. So let me now move on to what I think it takes to be successful. Some of the things I'm going to say will be self-evident. Some will be hidden in the nuances of life. So when I was thinking about leaving GE, Capital, to come back home to set up my own business, I went to my boss at the time, one of the best bosses I ever had. His name was Alec Berger. I went to Alec and said, hey, listen, I'm thinking about leaving. I want to go home and do my own thing. And he said, you know, you should read a book. You should read a book. Okay, this book will help you think about what it was. So he gave me this book. Unfortunately, I cannot remember the title of the book. Okay, I wish I could. But what the book was it was written by an African-American guy who used to work for Xerox. It's the Xerox company. They used to make photocopying machines those days, okay? And every time he came for promotion, he never got promoted. He never got promoted. His younger colleagues kept getting promoted above him. And this gentleman put it down to racism. You know, he was African American, and he said, oh man, they don't promote black people here, and that's the reason he's not getting promoted, so he left. He left and went and joined academia and started researching what it takes to be successful in life. That's really what this book was about, okay? And when I read this book, I was really fascinated by some of the things, okay? The first thing he said is society is structured in such a way that most people miss it. But if you think and look, you will notice it. There are 7 levels in society. There may be more and there may be less, but from this gentleman's thinking, there are 7 levels in society, okay? And that it's easy to progress from one level to another at the lower levels, but once you start getting to the higher levels, it becomes very opaque, and most people don't realize what it takes, and that's why people stall. That's why they stall in their progress in life, okay? So, level 1, he called the urban underclass, okay? It's easy to be in the urban underclass. If you go around, you will see everybody. You will see most people, and sometimes it's not about money, okay? If you are a drug dealer, you will have a lot of money, you will have a nice car, but you will remain in the urban underclass. You will not be able to rise beyond that, okay? Level 2, he said, you know, generally people who, if you walk into a hotel, people who serve you, if you walk into Burger King or McDonald's or fast food, you will find people who are serving you. You should consider those people as level 2. It's not very difficult to get from level 1 to level 2. If you go to high school, if you go to secondary school, if you graduate from secondary school, if you go to Mama Cass or Mama Put or whatever, you will get a job. You will get a job as a waiter, you will get a job serving people. It's not really difficult. Or let me rephrase that, it's self-evident what it takes to get to level 2. Good. Now, getting to level 3 is also not very difficult. Okay, if you go from high school to university, get a basic degree, come out, do your national service, get a job, any job will put you in level 3, okay? Alternatively, if you stick around the Burger King or the McDonald's long enough, because there's so much attrition, people come and go, before you know it, you'll be the manager of of that unit. Okay, that's equivalent of level 3. It's also not very difficult to get to level 4. Okay, if you do a master's degree, a professional degree, if you become a medical doctor, if you do an MBA, a law degree or something, you can easily get into level 4. The bank will hire you, the law firm, you can operate at level 4. It starts getting really difficult to imagine how to leave level 4 to level 5. And by the way, you can tell people's levels by just watching them, actually. You can literally tell how they operate or what level they are operating in society simply by watching them, okay? If you see somebody carrying keys around, for example, they're not beyond level 4. If you're in level 5, level 6, you don't even carry your own keys, really. You don't get to your house and put your key in the door and open it. Somebody will open the door for you. Somebody better open the door for you. Okay, so if you go to an airport, you see people sitting around, somebody working on a computer, in a laptop, there may be level 4, okay? People at level 5, level 6, they rarely open a laptop in public, very rarely. So this book, there's so many key signs you can tell how people are operating in society. It's not very difficult if you really want to. Okay? When you get to level 4, the problem starts at level 4. Okay? Because at level 4, more or less everybody is the same. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So more or less everybody is the same kind of at level 4. Okay? You all have the same kind of degrees, even if you went to different universities. Somebody may have gone to UniBen, somebody may have gone to Unilag, somebody may have gone to... But if you look around, you will find that you all have more or less the same degrees. You all have more or less the same courses that you studied. You all more or less have the same level of intelligence. Good. What does it take to move yourself from that level where everything was self-evident to the next level where things are not as self-evident? This is the secret. For you young people, this is the challenge. So let me give you some pointers. Okay. The first one is that you have to learn how to make good friends. You have to learn how to have a really reliable network. And I will come to what underpins that. It is important to do this because there is one fundamental secret about moving up in life. If you have to show up to do your job, to do the job yourself, everywhere that the job, one example of that, okay? I'm sure everybody here has been on an aeroplane. I presume everybody here has gotten on an aeroplane at some point in their time and flown somewhere, whether it's Abuja or you've been on an aeroplane. Now, the law requires, IATA law requires, that when you get on the plane, the pilot has to announce himself and his crew. The pilot has to say, this is Captain so-so-and-so, and my first officer is this, and my assistant is this, and the cabin crew is so-so-and-so. You're aware of this. They don't do it because they want to be nice to you, by the way. They do it because the law requires that they do it. How many of you remember the captain's name? 2 minutes after he's announced it, how many of you remember his name? Nobody. Huh? Really nobody. Okay? I can tell you that the captain earns a lot of money. They're not poorly paid people, but we don't remember them. Once the flight is successful, you're off the plane, you couldn't care who the pilot was. Okay? Here's the thing. The reason that you don't remember the pilot's name or that the pilots don't end up being important people in society beyond that trip is that they have to show up to do the job themselves. They have to be there present to fly the plane. Okay. And if you are going to be successful in the airline industry, you better learn how to delegate that job to somebody else. That is, if you have to fly your own plane, then you're not going to progress beyond a certain level. And what tends to happen is that we get really good at doing one particular thing, and then we show up there every day and every day and every day. And that, in a funny way, stalls our careers. In a funny way, it puts a limit on that career. Now, if you were a pilot, if you wanted to progress, you better learn how to hire other pilots to fly your planes for you. And you better learn how to move on to other things. That is, you have to drop the ability to do your job yourself. We operate 13 hotels across West Africa. I don't have to show up at those hotels, okay? But I do have to find, not about that. It's about the fact that they have put in place systems and infrastructure in such a way that they can trust one another. So if I said to you, let us say both of us were in, let's say, New York or somewhere, and I said to you, hey, I have this piece of land, I need to sell it, do you want to buy it? You may immediately trust what I'm saying because we're in New York, and you can check it out even in seconds. If we're down the road here somewhere and I said, oh, this piece of land is mine, you want to buy it, you may not necessarily trust it. All of a sudden you wonder, is there a family issue here? Does he really own the land? And the fact that you have to do more due diligence in that situation slows the transaction down, okay? And societies advance when the speed of transactions increase, okay? So Uber is a very good example, Uber. If I come to you and I say, hey, I'm a taxi driver, I get into my car, you may question whether I'm really a taxi driver or not, okay? If you get to the airport and you get on your Uber and say, Uber, come and pick me up, and a driver shows up from Uber, you get in the car. You trust Uber. For some reason, you trust Uber. You trust Uber because the transaction or the interaction is documented. It's documentable. It has a trail. If something goes wrong, you know who to call. So society, so what I'm telling you about trust is not only an individual thing. It's also a community-wide thing. It's a society-wide thing. And so the ultimate currency that we can trade with in life is trust. If you act in a manner consistently with trust, on the basis of trust, okay? I told you that my kid brother and I, we never wrote a document. Not even a piece of paper, nothing, okay? But we have one abiding principle. And I like to extend that principle to all my dealings, whether it is personal or business. And the simple principle is as follows. Let nothing that you say or do be the subject of further inquiry. I don't know whether you understand this simple principle. Good. If you say to me, this chair is blue, I don't want to have to inquire as to whether you really meant it was blue or a shade of green or a shade of blue. I don't need to do that, okay? And if I have to do that, you have introduced a further level of due diligence. You have slowed my transaction and my relationship with you down, and therefore my transaction costs and the rate at which I trust you more slows down. The thing is a spiral. It can either spiral upwards very quickly, or it can spiral downwards very quickly, okay? So it spirals upwards as follows. Okay, you know, I was having a conversation with my mother a few days ago. We were talking about a gentleman who works for us, and I said to her, he always makes excuses. I'm sure if you examine these excuses, they're probably right. Okay, but there are excuses all the time, and therefore, the rate at which you trust him to execute something reduces. So if you send somebody to the market, say, go and buy me tomato. Let's say the person goes to the marketplace and the market is closed. The market is genuinely closed, okay? There are 2 or 3 things the person can do. The first thing is the person can say, who are the tomato sellers? Where do they live? They can track them to their house, sit in their house, negotiate the purchase of tomato, come back to you, say, you know, when I got there, the market was closed, but I went to their house. And then I bought the tomato and I came back. They may even say, cost an extra amount. And you will gladly give. There's another set of people who will go, come back and tell you, Oga, the market was closed. They're not selling tomato. The next time around, who will you send? You send the first person. Okay? The second person gave you a genuine reason. The reason is genuine. But they didn't go the extra mile. You therefore didn't build the trust in them. You built the trust in the first person who went the extra mile. And even the Bible says, to whom is given, much more comes their way. It's not a simple, flaky philosophy. It is a statement of life. The more you do, the more you show that you can do, the more that comes to you. First, it comes in the form of responsibility. Then it comes in the form of blessing. That's really the story to move from level 4 to 5. You have to build trust. Otherwise, all of you are the same. Okay? It is in the building of trust that you are able to delegate. Okay? If you cannot delegate, you cannot move on. That is the story here. Okay? Now, to move from 5 to 6 is a really interesting thing. Okay? Because it is a function of courage. It is a function of leadership. It is a function of being aware of how you impact human beings, okay? Because to move from 5 to 6, people have to pick you out and say, we make you a leader. We anoint you as the leader for us, okay? That is, you have to have a capacity to make good decisions. Good decisions are the decisions that positively impact the generality of the people. Not every decision will be positive. Not every decision will turn out as you imagine. But over time, if you are a consistently good decision maker, okay? Now, how do you become a good decision maker? A good decision maker comes about if you are a very good listener. A very good listener. That's the first thing that you have to be. So, I didn't know that I did this, to be honest, okay? All I do know is that when I was about to get married, some 20-something years ago, almost 30 years ago, I remember asking my wife to be then, why me? Why me? Of all your possible suitors. And she said something that touched me then, 30 years ago. She said, you know, you're the first person I know who sat down and listened, and really listened. Good. What does it mean to really listen? You know, most people listen and judge. Okay? This is really an important thing. Most people listen and they judge. Okay? It is very rare to listen without judging. And when we talk about love, what is it to love, really? Okay? When you love somebody, you cannot judge them. As a matter of fact, in my view of Heaven's Gate, when we all appear there, okay, I think God will ask us one day, bring a witness. Bring a witness let that witness tell me whether you were a good person or not. Okay? You don't want to bring a judge, you want to bring a witness. That witness will have to be the person who stands for you and says, you know, when we were going through life, the man did or the lady did, and I really approve. Okay? Now, if you are a judge, you cannot be a witness. If you are a judge, you cannot be an ally. This is really the issue. So the first thing to learn is how to listen without having an opinion. It allows you absorb everything. It allows you see all the different sides of things. And it is that thing that allows you make better choices in life, better decisions because you are not opinionated. Okay? Now, this is the thing that allows you progress. Now, if you want to progress to level 7, this is also a big leap. But it is a conscious decision. And there is always a sacrifice to that. So when you get to level 7, honestly, you don't need money. You might think you do, but you don't need it. So I'll give you an example of somebody who was at level 7. Let's say, take Nelson Mandela, for example. I'm sure there are people in this room who are probably wealthier than Nelson Mandela when he was alive. But he didn't need money. He transcended money. So if Nelson Mandela was sick and he went to a hospital, the doctor would cure him. He wouldn't ask him to pay. He dare not ask him to pay. As a matter of fact, the doctor may brag about it. Mandela was in my hospital. You see the bed he lay on. He may even brag about it. Mandela will get up and walk away. If he feels like paying, he will pay. But nobody dare ask him for money. Okay? This is really what happens when you get to level 7. Okay? You transcend the need for the day-to-day. You really do. Okay? But you pay a price for it. So Mandela was in jail for 27 years. He could not have been a good father from jail. There's something, you become a person of the world. That is, you give yourself to the world. So I don't necessarily recommend it for everybody, okay, but it's important. So I want to move on to the skill sets, if you don't mind, okay? There are 2 major buckets of skill sets that you need if you are going to really take advantage of what I have just said to grow yourself in life. The first one is about ethics, and the second one is about skill set. So let me deal with ethics first, okay? And I'm going to use an example so that we all understand it clearly. So let us say that there is a ShopRite in this room. ShopRite, this room is ShopRite, or maybe next door there's a ShopRite or a supermarket, okay? There are checkout counters, but there are no human beings. And there is no consequence to taking what you want and walking away. Nobody's going to prosecute you immediately. So if you are hungry, you go into the ShopRite, you take a bag of rice. There is the checkout counters. If you like, you pay. If you like, you say, hey, listen, this bag of rice is 10,000 naira. Here is the till. You put your 10,000 naira in there. You carry your bag of rice and you go. Okay? If you like, take the bag of rice, walk past the till, put the thing in your car and drive away and go. Okay? This thing actually mirrors life. This simple thing that I've told you mirrors life. Most people would simply say, here is an opportunity. They will grab the rice and they will go away. The next day they will come, they will feel like something else, they will take it and they will go away. Okay? Few people will take the rice, imagine what it costs to get the rice there, go there, put the thing unpoliced, unsupervised, put it in. There's a third group of people which I think most people fall into. It's the category of what I call situational ethics. On a good day, they will put the money in if they think that they have money. Okay? There's a lot of money, they'll put it in. On a bad day, they won't. They come, they're unhappy, they have no money, they just don't do it. The bulk of people fall into this category of what I call situational ethics. There are very few people at the top end which, whatever it takes, they will do the right thing. Or they won't show up at the supermarket, okay? And then there is the people who will never do it. So what will happen is that one day, You will go there and there is no rice. Or maybe that's the day that you are hungry the most. Or that's the day that you have the biggest headache. You go to get Panadol, you go and the shelves are empty. There's nothing there. And you will start raking. Why is there no rice in this supermarket? Why is there no rice here? Somebody will say, come, let's take you to the manager so you can ask the question. They will lead you upstairs to the manager's office. You will open the manager's door. Who do you think you will confront? When you enter the manager's office, who do you think will be sitting at the desk? I can tell you, if you can't imagine it. Can anybody guess? Huh? Sorry? Who? No. You will confront yourself. Sitting in the manager's desk will be yourself. And you will ask yourself the question, why was I taken without giving? Why did I think this will last forever? And on the day, maybe your child is dying and you need, because it happens on that day, when you need it the most, that's when you realize that all this while you have been stealing from yourself. Nobody else. You don't steal from anybody. Don't imagine it for a second. You only rob yourself. You either rob yourself of the joys of life, you either rob yourself of the blessings because you are unaware of the equilibrium of life. You can never ever take more from the system than you give it. One way or another, even if you gain materially, you will lose the ultimate wealth of joy. You will lose it. So I urge you, young people, to all the time imagine this scenario. You have to always try to figure out how to be on the right side of this simple law of life. Don't imagine for a second that you can game the system or you can be smart or you can be happy gaming it. You can't. The fastest way to be unhappy is to take more from a situation than you can give. This is the fastest way. Initially, it's euphoric. When you do it the first time, the second time, the third time, you're getting away with it. It's adrenaline inducing. You imagine that you can continue. The system will always eventually equilibrize the situation. The second part of what I want to say is more technical skills. So, young people always ask, and when I talk to young people, I try to find out two things, or three things. The first one is, how broad is your thinking? This is important for young people, okay? You have to demonstrate to your employers, to people that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, that your thinking is broad. So, if somebody ever engaged you in a discussion on economics, you should understand economic theory. If somebody the next day engaged you, let's say, on quantum physics, I'm not saying you should become a specialist in physics, but you should have something interesting to say. You should have a point of view. What that means is that you have to constantly invest in your knowledge base. And you can't afford to limit that knowledge base to any one area, because the world is changing and it's changing really fast. And therefore, the skill set is not necessarily what you know. The skill set is the ability to learn anything within a very short period of time. To learn enough to be able to hold intelligent and deep conversations around that subject. You don't have to be an expert, but you have to know what's going on in the world, and you have to be able to hold on to your own point of view. The next part of the thing is you have to have some depth. So let us say that you, in a few areas, So let's say that you are in finance, okay? You have to understand what net present value is, what the internal rate of return is, how you calculate these things, how you calculate things on a risk-reward spectrum. You have to know these things. This is technical detail around a particular subject matter. That is, not only do you have to have breadth, you have to have depth in a few areas. That is, you have to be the most knowledgeable person in a room in your specific area. This also takes a lot of investment of time and energy in yourself, okay? And the third thing about that is you have to layer on top of what you know with communication skills, okay? So the worst example of it, let's go to the end of the spectrum for a minute, and say, let us say you are the most intelligent person in this room, but you are dumb. That is, you cannot speak. Who's going to know you're the most intelligent person in the room? Who's going to be able to evaluate your knowledge? Who's going to be able to be impacted by what you know? Without communication skills, your knowledge is more or less contained within you, okay? If you move to the other end of the spectrum where the person is a really powerful, impactful communicator, and they know what they're talking about, automatically you're able to impact everybody, automatically. So, I mentioned three things. You have to have breadth, you have to have depth in one or two subject areas, and you have to have the ability to communicate in a convincing manner those things that you know. Without these three things, you are not necessarily going to progress very far, okay? And without wrapping everything around you in etiquette, in ethics, in trust, you are not really going to be able to be an impactful person in the world. You're not going to be able to set an example in the world. Okay, I see people who, you know, they go on social media, they post consumption. They're in a nice restaurant, they post. They're in a nice whatever, they post. Okay, they're wearing nice shoes, they post. I tell young people, listen, consumption is good. Nothing wrong with it. If you want to be a consumer, fine, okay? But let's imagine a scenario. Here, it's a really interesting scenario, right? You go and you buy, I mean, what's the latest designer in town? I don't know, Gucci, I don't know. Who's the famous designer in town? The young people usually know. Huh? Sorry? Dior, Christian Dior. So you buy nice Christian Dior shoes or shirt or glasses, whatever it is. You wear them. I'm sure you feel a little happy. You feel accomplished a little bit, right? Good. Other people envy you. They're like, hey, that's nice. Imagine the scenario where you are Christian Dior, actually. That is, you were in your bedroom toiling, designing this, I don't know, shirt or bag or whatever. You design it, you go to a maker, a manufacturer, I say, give me some prototype. They do this prototype, you look at the detail, you change it. It takes you 6 months to do this work. And then you put it in the shop. And people come and scramble and buy it. And then you're walking down the street. Rather than you wearing the Christian Dior, you see other people wearing your product. How do you feel? I can tell you that you will feel 20 times happier and better than if you were wearing somebody else's product. That is, we think consumption is good. I tell you, creativity is much better. Really, if you're really creating things, you're on a whole different level, okay? That's why sometimes when we look at the awesomeness of God, and I'm not going to preach to you because I'm not a preacher, when you look at the awesomeness of God, that's why we can't comprehend it. Because he created from nothing. He must be somewhere in heaven looking down at his creation and being so much happier than any of us can imagine. We are consuming. And we're even proud of our consumption. We wear it nicely and walk down the street. What are we even happy about? That somebody else likes what we're wearing. That's really it. There's nothing in Christian Dior. There's no injection there that injects the magic of happiness in you or the drug of happiness. You're only happy because other people imagine that, oh man, that's a nice guy. That's the only thing that makes you happy. If you were really smart as a young person, you will be in the creativity business. Now, creativity has its risks, of course. That's why most people don't want to try it. Okay, so let me give you an example of one of the risks of creativity. Let us imagine for a second that you make this bag. You do everything in the world. You go to all lengths to make this bag and you put it in the shop. And not one person buys it. People come, they look at your bag and say, how ugly, and they walk away. Or they say, imagine that guy. He thought he could sell us this stupid bag, and they walk away. It's deflating. People can personalize that kind of failure, okay? The easiest one is, let's say you have a party. You organize a party for friends. That's creativity, actually. You're creating a moment of joy for people, all right? You send out your invitations, nobody shows up. Nobody shows up, okay? Immediately, you start imagining people don't like you. You personalize these things, okay? So people don't like to take the risk of being creative people, creative forces in the world. That's why they default to consumption, okay? But I tell you, when you are a creator, you are never a failure. Even if it looks like the first instance you have failed, you are never a failure. Even Christ himself was a creator. He created the whole religion, the whole Christianity. Even when he was being persecuted, you know, my view of his message when he said, in 3 days' time I will rise, it didn't necessarily mean that his body would rise. I'm sure his body rose, but it didn't necessarily mean that. It meant that this message, this thing that you're trying to stop, this creative force that has been unleashed on the world, in 3 days' time it will rise and it will overwhelm all of you who are trying to put it down. It will overwhelm all of you. That's the force of creativity. You are never a failure, even if people put you down. The fact that you stepped out there and said, I am going to do this thing, I can see nothing here, but I'm going to create something out of this. I'm going to put myself at risk. I want you young people to start modeling this life. Don't model the life of consumption. It is the easiest way out, okay? Model the life of trying to be a creator. You will find that the more you create, the more the doors open for you to be an even bigger force. That's really the truth about it. Now, I want to then move on very quickly to the opportunities that exist in the marketplace in Nigeria. And then I think that I can throw it open to questions. I don't know how much time I have, maybe another 20 minutes. So let me go into opportunities as I see them. The important thing to start with here is that technology and the convergence of technologies have made it possible for people to reach other people at zero marginal cost. I know that I'm using a technical term, but it's certainly true. That is, the cost of being able to communicate one person to another or to reach wide marketplaces is now close to zero. Virtually everybody here has a mobile phone. I'm sure most of you even have a smartphone. If you sit in a place where there's Wi-Fi, For free, you can reach the rest of the world, literally the rest of the world. This was not the case 20 years ago. So it was harder to do business 20 years ago than it is today, because today you can reach everybody for free. As a matter of fact, you can alter the balance sheet of any bank today, just on your phone. You just withdraw your money. Straight up there, the bank has altered its balance sheet. You can sit in this room right now. If all of us collectively agree, let us say we all had accounts with, let's say, First Bank. If all of us collectively agree to pull our money out of First Bank, sitting in this room, we can do it. Literally, you can alter by First Bank's life. Okay? You don't need to go into that bank anymore. So that's the first piece of technology, and this thing is getting even more and more pervasive. The second piece of technology that is converging is what I might call cloud computing. So no longer do you have to store data in some server somewhere. It uploads right as you're doing the transaction. It's in the cloud. Everything is documentable, everything is traceable, and as a result, data is multiplying. It is the cloud that has made data the new oil. Okay? So the more data you have, the more valuable what you're doing is. Okay, so that's the third piece, okay? The fourth piece, of course, is the internet and internet speed, okay? In January, I think the federal government just approved 5G, okay? That means the speed of transactions will even go up exponentially in such a manner that everything is going to be moving at warp speed. Now, when you bring all these technologies together in some convergent manner, you have to ask yourself, how can we as young people be beneficiaries of this? How can we take advantage of this? So I'll give you what I am doing in healthcare, okay? Healthcare is a really fascinating. I use it as an example, only as an example, because I think that you can transport this same example into education, or the education industry. You can transport it into agriculture. You can do all kinds of things with this. The marketplace for public goods in our country, unfortunately, has failed. We simply have to acknowledge that. So the municipality does not provide you with water or electricity. You have to provide your own. The municipality or the government does not really provide you with security. You have to provide your own. I don't know how many people send their children to the public primary or public secondary school. Most people will go to the private schools because the public schools have failed, public hospitals have failed. The public markets simply have failed. It is not your fault, it is not mine, it is not anybody's. We just acknowledge it. In that the private sector, the fact that we still have a country today is that the private sector has stepped into where public markets have failed. So you have private education, you have private hospitals, you have private that. So we are counting on you in the private sector to make sure that these markets don't collapse totally, because once they do, there's anarchy. And the fact that technology has now made it possible for the public, for private capital to step into these public markets is where I'd like you to think about. So in healthcare, what we have done, which is my company, CarePay, is we have taken the whole ecosystem of the healthcare industry. Okay, there are doctors on one hand, there are HMOs and private health insurance on the other, there are beneficiaries on the third part, and we have tried to figure out a way to use technology to link all these people so that if you go to a hospital, immediately you get into the hospital can trigger your care and you approve it, and it becomes a documentable transaction on the internet that stores your data. okay, so that that transaction is traceable. If the HMO then claims, institutes a claim that we cured you for malaria, therefore the HMO should pay, okay, that transaction is immediately traceable. I told you about trust earlier. Trust is a basis, transparency is a basis of trust. So once there is transparency in that transaction, which is what our company is doing, is creating the equivalent of an Uber for healthcare, so that every interaction, patient to doctor, doctor to HMO, is documented, traceable, etc. The data that that creates is really fascinating and is of incredible value. So let me give you one value that comes out of that data. So it is possible, without knowing, that the people in Ikoyi suffer from malaria and the people in Lekki suffer from typhoid. But without documenting the interactions that happen all over the country or all over the state, and know why people go to hospital for what reason, you will never really know. Okay? You will never really know. But if you know that, let's say you're a pharmaceutical company, you can distribute your pharmaceutical goods more effectively. You can send the right goods to Ikoyi versus the right goods to Lekki. The government can make better healthcare policy decisions, okay? Because it now has much better data. That's just one outcome of this. The second outcome of it, for example, is we have now created these, what we call healthcare wallets, in partnership with the telco companies, MTN, etc. So the money in your healthcare wallet can only be spent in a certified, registered healthcare practitioner, okay, who is certified and registered and on the platform. This has a benefit, so let me give you one simple benefit, okay? So let us say you had an uncle in the village who says to you, I'm sick, please send me some money to go to hospital. How do you know whether that person is going to use the money you sent them to go to a hospital or not? They may use it and go to the babalawo. They may use it and drink. They may do, maybe they're not even sick. But if you put it in their healthcare wallet, they can only spend it in a hospital. You see how creating something that allows for trust immediately makes everything flow smoother. These are some of the things that CarePay is doing, okay? And we're doing it on a large enough scale. Today we have 400 hospitals registered. We have about 400,000 or 500,000 people on our platform with this. And we have just signed an agreement with MTN. We're in the middle of another agreement with Airtel to distribute nationwide. And we have about 7 health insurance companies putting up health insurance products tailored to the retail market. So I'll give you one last example, then I can throw it open. Then I can talk about how you can use this in other parts of the economy, and then I'll throw it open to questions. So let me give you one example of a retail product that without technology that I've just talked about, you couldn't do. So if you work for a corporate organization, you will probably have health insurance coverage because it will be the policy. Without that, if you're a trader in the market, it's very hard because if you go to the insurance company, they will sell you a corporate product. Who has 80,000 naira to buy health insurance when you're not sure that when you want to use it, you will get the service that you want? So very few people buy it. As a result, the HMOs don't create retail products. Now, with our technology, if you are, let us say, traveling by road from Lagos to Abuja or Lagos to, let's say, the east, okay? You can get on our platform, *3254#, and you can buy travel insurance that will cover you for that journey if you had an accident, for example, or a mishap for 1,500 naira. And there are hospitals along the way that will care for you for free if you have that act. When the journey terminates, 2 or 3 days later, the insurance expires. That's targeted retail insurance that is only possible because of the convergence of these technologies. You can literally, in the car park there, buy the insurance on your phone. This alters the landscape of people who get coverage, whether it is targeted coverage or annual coverage or whatever. You can do it from your phone. Now, this same thing is applicable in education. It's applicable in agriculture. So let's take education, for example. I'm going to make a prediction here. I hope that we're around to see it. I suspect that in 10 years' time, education will be completely democratic. That is, you will have no real need to go to the embassy to get a visa, to go to a university in Canada or something. Technology will be such a way that once you can pay online, you can take the whole program literally online. And you can pick and choose your professors. The professor at Harvard will put his content online, you can buy it. The professor at MIT, and then you can pick and choose. You can literally just get online and say, this professor is famous, I want to take his course, okay? And there will be companies, and I suspect the one company that will do this very quickly will be Apple or Google, okay? They will tell you if you take enough courses that Apple has put on its platform or Google has put on its platform, Google University will give you a degree, certificate. You can sit in your own house. You can work the hours you want, okay? And once people like Google or Apple get into this business of creating these kind of educational platforms or universities, they will knock the universities like Harvard out of business. They charge you $70,000 a year to get an education, okay? And you have to be physically present there to get the education. They're going to knock those guys out, okay? You can do the same thing here. You can start small amongst yourselves. You can figure out who knows what. You can start creating your own content. You can buy some little capacity on the cloud. You can store your content on the cloud. You can start marketing it. I did that in education. I have a hospitality academy that feeds my hotels because I got tired of having to hire expatriates. I said, you know what? No need for that. I can't be paying expatriates $8,000 a month net when the dollar is going this way. Why don't I create my own academy, teach people, put my content on there, and when they graduate, I place them in my hotels. It's been one of the most rewarding and most successful programs I've ever done. I think today we have maybe 27 graduates. I take about 9 to 12 a year. We've done this now for 3 years. Some of them are general managers. As a matter of fact, one of them is an HR manager at one of our hotels. He's coming to see me. He was an Uber driver. That's what he was. He was an Uber driver. I didn't have a degree, okay? So you can do the same thing in education, okay? You have to be aware of the fact that technology is making everything possible for young people at a lot less cost than it used to be before, in that you have to build trust amongst one another, and it doesn't have to be a big group. You have to start picking small groups where you can implicitly trust people such that if they tell you this is red, it's red. And the day they know that it changes from red to blue, they won't even wait for you to call. They will call you and say, you know that thing I told you that was red? I'm really sorry. I woke up this morning and I discovered it was blue. I'm really sorry. I misspoke. It was blue. That's the level of trust at which you guys have to operate with one another. And if you layer on top of that the opportunities that technology has opened up for you in a market as big as ours, you'll be surprised. The reason Nollywood has gone wild is not necessarily because it has content that is superior. Of course, it's developing nice content. It's because it's using technology. They stream their content, they can, before you know it, people have picked them up. That's the force of creativity. The people who do Nollywood, I mean, you will see them, they look nice and glamorous, etc., but they're really creators. Most people who create don't consume. They don't really consume their creativity. They just watch other people do it, okay? And this is really where the opportunity lies. So I will stop here. I hope that the little I've said brings some modicum of thought and understanding, etc., to you. And I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for Dr. Ndile, please. Okay, so please. Okay, do we have questions? Any questions, please? Just signify by raising your hands, please. Do we have someone with a mic, please? Anyone to help out here? Please, could you just raise your hands? Signify by raising your hands, please. Questions, please.
There's some lady.
Good morning, sir. Thank you so much. I enjoy your lecture. My name is Sekai Somi. I am into the agricultural sector, so I heard you talk about the agriculture, but you didn't really go in depth into it. So if you can actually throw more light in about the agricultural sector with technology, that would be good. Thank you.
Any other question, please? Anyone? Any other question?
Thank you so much, sir, for the insight that you have given. There is no doubt that technology is the way to go, and one of the ways one can proceed is through applications, apps. But the cost of building an app is not cheap. You know, I'm at a point where I'm looking at the prospects of an app, and the kind of money they are talking about is, I don't want to say it's ridiculous because it's intellectual capital. And without those applications, you can't really make much progress in technology. Is there a way or a forum or how people can be supported in that area, even if it is pro bono at the initial stage? When the ROI begins to kick in, they can get their money. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Quite insightful teaching. The care, I think that, is it an app or something? I think I didn't really get it clearly. Is it an app or or a website or something? What you're using to run the healthcare, is it like an app? Then two, I don't know whether you have anything like mentorship kind of programs or things where people can as well connect with you after here.
Okay. One more, sir.
One more, yeah.
Good morning, sir. I'd like to ask for the movement from level 4 to level 5. You spoke about doing certain things over time and level 4, and then level 5, you have people do for you. So in making that transition from 4 to 5, I think I don't know how, in terms of timing, because at times people are just stuck. They don't know when to move, and you just find them working in careers till they retire. So I'm just wondering, how do we confirm the right time to make that jump? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Let me try to take can you hear me? Okay, let me try to take the questions one at a time. Let me deal with yours first on agriculture. Now, agriculture is a really interesting field. The matter of fact of it is that it is one of the underpinning things of our society. Without it, we're not going to move. Now, you have to decide in agriculture, for example, whether you're going to be at the production end or whether you're going to be a distributor. Okay? You can be both, but I think you have to pick one first. Now, if you're going to be a distributor, one of the advantages that technology can bring to you is that you can aid price discovery very easily. What do I mean by that? If you created a platform or an app, if you like, but let's call it a platform, where you can actually go out to the farmers and say, if you have produce of a certain quality and that you would like to monitor that quality, okay? As you are having produce, you can put it on my platform. So you can go to somebody in agriculture who farms tomatoes or whatever. You say, listen, every time you have additional tomatoes, put it on my platform, okay? I will take the task of ensuring that so many more eyes see your produce, okay? And that if they click, they can order your produce, and I will make sure they get it fresh. Okay, so behind your app, you have to have a logistics, and that's relatively easy. You can rent logistics today. There are so many people on motorbikes who you can ask to go pick up this and take it to somebody else's house. Here's your fee out of that, okay? And all of a sudden, you're creating a marketplace for fresh produce in Lagos. Now, the challenge, the secret with these things is always to start small. Okay, let's say you lived in where I live, let's say VGC, for example, right? Okay, yeah, so you can create a small app for people in VGC only. Okay, that's how you start. Okay, if you imagine that you can do something big on the first scale, it's not going to be successful. If you do something in VGC, for example, and you go to VGC people and market it to the management there and say, listen, here, let them put it on their phone. If they want to order fresh eggs, fresh this, fresh that, 3 clips, I deliver it to them, okay? I deliver it to them and then I charge them to pay, okay? Before you know it, maybe take you a year, you would have perfected that system within VGC. You would have got the right suppliers, you will know who's reliable, who is not, who you should take off your system, who you should keep on. You will know which logistics companies supply better and faster. Before you know it, you have a simple, small pilot, okay, that you can expand if it's successful. No need to start big. That's just one example. You can even do it in the supermarkets, okay, so that people in VGC don't have to go to, I don't know, Ebana or whatever. You deliver to them, okay, through your app, okay, and before you know it, you have a small business that's technology-driven. The beauty about these things is once you set it up, okay, you free your time to do something else, okay? You don't have to physically be present. You're not the person doing the delivery. You go on and do something else, okay? You can also be on the actual produce side, but distribution is far more important these days for agriculture, especially fresh agricultural produce, okay? And I think that if you really wanted to pay attention to something like that, I think you will find a market, okay? I really do think so, okay? And you go to these small organized communities. I use VGC because it's small enough and big enough at the same time, and it's fairly organized. And if you're able to convince 1 or 2 people in there, especially at the management company, before you know it, your app is on everybody's phone in VGC, okay? Just one example. You have to demonstrate value. So let me go to the next one that you talked about, which is the cost of creating an app is prohibitive. Indeed it is, okay? The big cost is actually writing the code, okay? So, funny enough, I think that the answer lies in you have to find collaborators. Okay, capital is of many forms. Financial capital is one, but there's also all kinds of other forms of capital, intellectual capital, your network, etc. If you find people who will build with you the actual app at no cost, so you share your profits or you share something, you trust one another to share something, I think you'll find the ability and the skill set to actually create that thing in the first instance. It won't be perfect, it won't work perfectly, but the fact that it exists in code form, okay, is something that will bring other resources to you. That's really how it works. You can't imagine for a second that you have to gather the money together. I don't know any business that I've ever done in which I've gathered the money together in one spot to make the investment. No, you make a little bit at a time. You put your own effort, your own energy in, you create 3 lines of code, 10 lines of code. You share that with somebody you trust who's also writing code, who can add another 14 lines or tell you before you know it, your app begins to take shape at close to no cost. Then putting it out there is then a whole different ball game. You have to share it even more with people who then are able to say they will be helpful to you. Otherwise, it's hard. Okay, CarePay raised in our initial fundraising $45 million. Okay, but we didn't raise it from day one. We had built the whole thing out on sweat, on blood, on tears, and then we went to the international investment community. And then on the evidence of what they had seen and the size of the market and the potential, they made the investment. If we had gone to them with an idea, we're thinking about this thing, we think it will work, nobody will touch you. You have to have put in a lot of time, and at no money, you have to find the resources to do it. There are companies that do this thing. I think there's a company that used to be here, I think they're called Andela. Okay, I don't know any of you who have heard of Andela. What Andela, huh? So, Andela, yeah. What they do, by the way, is it's just a small community of people who write software code. Okay, yeah, you access them. They put you in touch with the right people who will write the code for you. They take a percentage of your company. They don't necessarily ask you for money up front. They assess whether your idea is good, your app is good, may make money. They will give you the software people to write it, and maybe they'll take 20% of the business or something. Okay, and they have become very successful. They just went public, I think this year actually, and somebody valued them at close to $2 billion. So those resources exist. So now let me go on to the third person who asked me about CarePay. Okay, and whether CarePay is an app or something. CarePay is what you might call multimodal. So we just got our USSD shortcode license. I think it's *3254#. I think something like that. I think it's going to be active in a week's time. On your phone, *3254# will get you into a menu. Press 1 to buy insurance, press 2 to do this, press 3, and if you get to the insurance part, it will say press 1 if you want AXA Mansard insurance, press 2 if you want Hygieia, press 3 if you want whatever, okay? And then when it's done, it should take you to a payment gateway. We just signed an agreement with Flutterwave, so you should be able to put your debit card in. It will take the amount out of your account, immediately give you an enrollment code, okay, and a policy number, and put you immediately on the database. If you fall ill the next day and you go to a hospital, immediately all your data should be there. We partnered with the telecom companies primarily because of this and because of the fact that through SMS they can reach everybody. We can do targeted marketing. MTN knows how much everybody here owns. You'll be surprised. They know how much you recharge per day, but now they can tell your income group. They can immediately tell what kind of insurance that you need. And the other thing why we partner with them is what we call KYC, Know Your Customer. So immediately you put your phone number into our phone when you're buying. We know everything about you. We know your name, we know your address, we know everything. Okay, and therefore the whole system works much better. So that's one way where our website is going to come up by next week. We're launching with MTN next week. Once the launch is done, then you can do it on your phone, you can do it by website. It's multimodal. You can start on your phone, and then when you get home, you complete on your on the website. Yeah, there's all kinds of ways. But watch out for this space. I think in another week or two, I think that you will be hearing a lot about CarePay, and you will be able to get insurance done. The last question, I think it was the last question, was around how you move, when you make the decision around how you move from level 4 to 5. That's a really interesting question, because the simple truth about it is that you don't make a conscious decision. Okay? You don't wake up in the morning and say, I want to move to level 5. That's not how it works. Okay? How it works is that you invest over time. Okay? And as you invest over time, you will find the tidal wave of life moving you along. That's really how it happens. So if you start at level 4 and you are honest with one another, you're honest, you're dependable, trustworthy, doing things all the time that you say you're going to do, you try to do them, you make good, smart decisions around what you do, who you associate with, all those kind of things. Over time, people will pick you out. The system will pick you out as dependable and trustworthy. And before you know it, you yourself are able to delegate. You're only able to delegate because people trust you. Let me tell you something. You cannot delegate anything to anybody who does not trust you. It's really simple. If I say, come and work for me, and you don't believe I will pay you, honestly, you won't come. It doesn't matter how much I speak to you. You get, if you think for a second, this gentleman is not fair. If I come, he's not going to pay. He's not that trustworthy. You won't show up. And even if you showed up, you will show up thinking to yourself, I better get at him before he gets at me. It's really that, even if it's not a conscious thought. You get, because most people don't make these thoughts conscious. Okay, that's not how the human psyche works. Okay, but you're already primed for self-preservation without knowing it. Okay, yet there are other people where they simply say, follow. Jesus Christ said, follow. Just follow me. Okay, just follow me. When he said, go out there and fish. It's a rough sea, but fish. Just cast your net. You think if they didn't trust him, they would go out in that sea? Over time, he had built it up from a young person who it made sense what he said over time. Okay? This is really the issue. Okay? And the fact is, so I'll say 3 or 4 things here. I meant to say it earlier about a few personalities in the Bible. That really touched my heart. Okay? So we start with, let's say, Abraham. Okay? Abraham, God said, just go. Just go. You will come upon the land of milk and honey. And there you'll settle. Okay? He never said it was going to be easy. As a matter of fact, when he eventually got there, there was famine. In the very land of milk and honey, that he escaped to Egypt. That's really what happened. Okay? Escaped to Egypt, eventually came back. Okay? And then his blessings came. If he didn't move, if he didn't trust, there is no milk and honey for him. If he said, I don't trust, demonstrate to me now before I move that there is milk and honey in that land, he was never going to be Abraham. He was never going to be. And he rose to the point where he could even bargain with God. That's the kind of relationship that I'd like all of us to develop, where God says, I'm going to punish this whole town. I'm going to punish them. They're not good people. Abraham says, I don't think it's right, sir. I really don't think so. Do you get it? God said, okay, find 50 people who are good in this town. Then I don't punish them. Abraham said, 50? Why 50? He bargained God Almighty down to 5. Imagine that you can bargain God. I don't agree, sir. I don't think it's right, sir. Honestly, in your mind, respectfully. He bargained him down to 5. He still failed. But the principle of the story is that he had enough faith, enough confidence, enough transparency to bargain with God. That's one of my role models. That's the kind of relationship I would like to accomplish. That's the kind of relationship that I would like you guys to accomplish. The second relationship that I like is that of Solomon, for one simple reason. One simple reason. You know, God goes to Solomon and says, tell me what it is you want, and I give it to you on the spot. I give it to you on the spot. Just tell me what it is. And Solomon says, he doesn't say, oh, God, give me money. He never said that. He never said, give me wealth. He never said, give me life. He never said that. All he said is, give me wisdom, that I might discern thy will all the time. Man, how powerful. Give me the wisdom that I know what it is you, God, are thinking all the time. You just approximate God. You're not God, but you approximate him. If there's rain falling, all of a sudden you know why it's falling. If there's rain falling on your soul, if there are people you have a deep understanding of what is going on all the time. And God says, wow. Because you didn't ask for the material things of life, you asked me for something far deeper. I'll give you that which you asked for, plus all the other things, because you can't have the wisdom without the other things. They will all come together. So it's always better to have a discernment of the will of God and to seek to attain it. Really seek to attain it as young people. It takes a lot to do, but to seek to attain it. The third relationship that gives me a pointer, really, is that of Moses. But in a funny way, it gives me a pointer in the reverse. So let me say what I mean by that. Moses, of course, a very great character, very great leader. But the sad thing about Moses, in my view, and I'm uneducated in this sense because I'm not a preacher or a pastor, but Moses was also a complainer. That's really the issue here. So God says, hey, go lead these people out of Israel. Moses said, but I can't speak. I stutter, I stammer, I don't know how to do it. God says, go there. When you get there, I will tell you what to do. There will be people to support you. Just go there. He gets there. He was always complaining. When he went to pick up the 10 Commandments, when he came down, the people were partying. He got annoyed. They are not even focused on what I'm doing. They don't care. I'm upset. I'm unhappy. I strike this thing. And God said to him, you know what? I'm kind of tired of you, really. You're going to see the promised land, but you won't get there. You will see it. You will lead the people there, but you're not going to enjoy it. You're complaining way too much. I've told you I'm God. I'm going to give you the deal. I'm going to give you, I won't send you to do what you, but you can't get over it. So I'd like to end on that note for young people. Don't complain. The system is what it is. It's stacked against you if you like. Don't wake up and say, because it happens. Cain and Abel, the same thing. God took one person's offering, didn't take the other person's offering. Really, that's what really happened. The other person got upset. Why didn't you take my offering? When I killed the person whose offering was taken, why didn't you even attack God? Why didn't you even say to God, why you didn't take my offering? I don't agree. This is what young people do. You don't know that you're doing it. You complain, those who then say, well, let's do 419, or let's do, I don't know, fraud or whatever. You're acting as Cain. You're attacking the wrong person. You're attacking the system. The system is always stacked against you. It's never in your favor. Don't complain. Don't act out your complaint. Don't go killing. Don't go shooting. Don't go stealing. Don't make an excuse because it doesn't record. The system doesn't give me opportunity. I'm going to attack it. This is the worst thing you can do. And once you do it once, that's it. You're on the slope. Because it even gives you adrenaline. So you don't know when to stop. On that note, I will stop and say thank you, unless there are more questions. Then,
yes, sir.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Just
Thank
three
you.
more questions, sir.
Okay.
One was asked online from Dr. James Komalafa. He said, how do we integrate these imperatives on a very pragmatic, accessible, and usable format for church leadership?
Okay.
That's one. Then, Mama?
Again, thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful delivery. The question that our sister asked was on level 4 to 5.
Yeah.
But I want to ask on level 5 to 6.
Yes.
You talked about delegation.
Yes.
And you said in delegation, you have to learn to trust.
Yes.
I want to ask a question in that area because sometimes it's not easy to trust. And what if you trust someone in the process of trusting? Because I know people have issues with trusting. That's why even great leaders, like you said, may not be able to move beyond that level if they do not trust.
Yeah.
Now, when you have your fingers burnt in the process of trusting someone, what is the process of bouncing back? Because sometimes it could be very painful. I have heard of a story of a man who trusted but lost his life in the process. It was a case of sending money for something to be done. Yeah. He came home and nothing was done. He had borrowed so much money and got home and nothing, based on trust. And when he got here, he had heart attack and died. Now, I also want to ask, do you have such an experience and how did you bounce back? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mine is just to re-echo what the gentleman said.
Yeah.
He had requested to know if you have a mentoring.
A mentor?
A mentoring process.
Okay.
Through which you can accommodate some of them that might want to feed into it.
Okay, thank you. So I'll address that too, okay? So if I miss a question, just remind me, yeah?
Thank you, sir. My name is Matt Godwin, and my question is just a balance in perspective. In the sense that you taught us that we should be creators, other than being consumers. So, but you've also said that often it's always that the system is always against us.
Yeah.
So what about times that we want to be creators, but then the system wants us to be consumers, but we want to be creators of system? This is what I mean. I don't know if it's right for me to do this, but I had a friend who happened to be, he was doing online tutoring, right? And so he had close to like over 200,000 followers, or close to like 500,000 followers. So recently, one of the big edtech organizations that we have in Nigeria called him, and he's a friend of mine, and they monetized this platform and gave him around 860,000 naira. Now, the issue I had with him was I tried to see what they are going to get from him compared to what he's imputing into the system, leveraging the resources the network that he has now. Okay. So me looking at him now, it's more like how should I paint it now? I deliberately pulled out of working for organizations because there's this issue of we young people always having issues with, being patient about 18.
Okay. All right, let me, thank you so much. Let me try to remember the questions, okay, as much as I can. The one that I remember that you asked was about the mentoring program. Unfortunately, I don't have a formal mentoring program. I do have in my academy, my hospitality academy, for sure I have a mentoring program. It's funny because my students can't even afford the tuition, but I have insisted that we give them the best. So I take them around Africa on my own dime. I show them what hospitality around Africa is. I teach them a second language in French so that they can operate across the West African region. And I try to teach them that there's something really interesting about hospitality. It's actually a global skill set to try to be a general manager or to own your own hospitality outfit. So within that program, I do have a fair amount of involvement of my time and mentoring. Even my lecturers, my professors, I took them to schools in Europe so that they could learn the content that they would teach, and then I oversee them and I mentor them. But do I have a formal mentoring program outside of that? I don't. I wish that I did. I wish I had the time and the structure to do it, because I genuinely believe that my experience can be really useful to young people. But I haven't really done it outside of my hospitality program. Perhaps it's something that I would think about doing. So I think that was one question. I'll come to yours, madam, because I think it's a fundamental one. I can't remember what the other questions were. I'll come to you. Oh, yes. Whether we have an online program for this, is that what it was? Sure. Well, the first thing, the reason that I talked about this thing the most today, I spent a lot of time on it today, is that when I first was made aware of this, okay, I was surprised. I was surprised because it never crossed my mind. You know, you would always assume that one person progressed and the other person didn't because they were lucky or because they had a connection or something, okay? It was the first time, and this was many, many, many years ago, it was the first time that I became aware that you could grab your future in your own hands. And you could make of yourself or of your future whatever it is you want it to be, as long as you are aware. As long as you are aware of the fact that society progresses you on the basis of these things that I talked about. Okay? Not that you wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm in level 4, how do I get to level 5? That's not it. If you're aware from the beginning that If I operate on a basis of transparency and trust and whatever, okay, that somehow I elevate, somehow. So whether you like it or not, people will take, to whom much is given, more is expected. If you're consistent and your workplace delivering, okay, absent excuses, not that they took the light at night, I couldn't do the job, I couldn't turn in the assignment, no, forget that. I turned in the assignment despite the fact that they took the light, okay? That's when you start building these things, okay? And before you know it, you're there. Now, is there an online, is there an institution around these things? No. If there were, if it was self-evident, honestly, people will know. It's not. Now, should I create an institution or something? Fine, or should people be doing this and trying to guide young people? Absolutely. I think that I'm doing my bit, especially when I talk about my academy, which I'm incredibly proud of. But have I done it on a big scale? No, I haven't. I wish that I could. Maybe that's the other half of the way I dedicate my life. You can think about making an impact in many ways. One way you can think about making an impact is across a large group of people, okay? And you can make a marginal impact across a large group of people, or you can pick a small select group of people and really, truly alter their lives. That is, you are deep into what they do, how they think, I've elected this other path where I have a small group of people who I really, truly try to transform. And I think that I've been fortunate enough. I think we're at 100% in transformation process. I don't think I've lost one of my young people. I think they've gone on to do amazing things in hospitality. And I'd like to figure out how to extend it to finance, investments, business, entrepreneurship, etc. Maybe that's the next step. I don't want to address yours, then, Madam, I'll end with yours because yours is really crucial. What you were saying, and what I understand you were saying, is that the system compels you to be consumers, and yet I'm telling you to be creative, and that the system is really stacked against you, and even the very people who you count on end up trying to take that which you have created for next to no money. That's really what I think I heard you saying, okay, in a summary, if I'm right. Okay? Huh? Yes, good. So let's start by saying that creativity in and of itself does not necessarily start or end with the product, okay? Creativity involves trying to figure out how to get around human beings. Because whether you like it or not, in the world, stupidity exists. Stupid human beings exist, and they exist in the majority. And I don't mean stupid in the sense of, you know, how we bandy the word around, a stupid guy or a stupid person. That's not what I mean by stupidity. I mean stupidity in the technical, real definition of stupidity. What do I mean by, what is the definition of stupidity? There are people in the world, we call them stupid people technically, who do things that are neither in their own best interest, nor in your own best interest, nor in the best interest of society. There are people like that. You can't get away from them. Okay? They are just, their ego takes over. They know the right thing to do. They know that if they do this thing, it will be helpful to you or to society or whatever, but they just don't want to do it. They want to see you go through pain. They want to see you suffer. They want to see you not succeed because your success is painful to them. They exist in the world. You can't write them off. You can't say, oh, God, don't put me in touch with stupid people, because I tell you, you walk out of the door here, you will confront them. You confront them at every level. The policeman who stops you on the road, you think it's in his long-term best interest to stop you? No, he just stops you because in the short term, he'll make a profit. He harms society by hampering trade, and movement. He doesn't care. Society be damned, okay? So there are people like that, okay? And your creativity is that you have to identify people like this or situations like that as it's occurring. And your mental antenna has to go up quickly, okay? And you have to start imagining ways in which you get around stupidity. Sometimes you have to be incredibly humble, not because you don't know that they're stupid, but because as it is, that's the way to get around it. Okay? You have to find a way. The problem is that when you confront stupidity, most of us retaliate with equal stupidity. That's really the issue. It becomes a test of wills. And you both descend into a pit. Okay? You can get around it, but you have to be aware. All of a sudden, you're confronting a stupid situation. And I need to emphasize that when I say stupid, I'm not in the insolent term of it. It's really just the technical term of it, that you're dealing with a situation where, for good or bad, people don't want to do what is in the best interest of everybody. They don't. Their ego has overtaken, and you have to then counteract it either with humility, with care, with sensitivity, okay? But somebody has to subjugate their ego, okay, to get around it. And oftentimes it's you. What do you care? You've gone around it, you've moved on, you barely remember the policeman or whoever it is that stopped. You don't remember him. You parted with 2,000 naira, 3,000 naira, be damned. Okay? You're on to the next bigger thing. All right? If you keep your perspective in mind, okay, first of all, I can tell you, you will find far more stupid people who are prepared to stop you in your tracks than you imagine. That's a given. Okay? The second thing is you have to have the antenna to quickly pick it up. And then the third thing is you have to have the mental agility, the personal characteristics straight to quickly adapt to that situation so that you put it behind you and you're on to your bigger things. If you get stuck in it, they've succeeded. So let me now come to your question, madam. Your question was of twofold. One was, how do you keep trusting people and situations where you have been let down repeatedly? And then I think the second part of the question is, have I ever dealt with it? So let me say, first of all, that I don't believe that you can progress very far if you don't have trustworthy people around you. That's the first thing, okay? The second principle that I want to expound is that, and this is, I think you make a decision to do this, and then eventually it becomes part of you. You can either operate in the world. Most people bifurcate. You can operate out of fear or you can operate out of love. Okay? And if most of your decision making is based on fear, there is no progress. Really. I'm afraid if I give you money to build my house, you won't build it. Okay? The house will never get built because you're always afraid. You're always, okay? And there may be the right reasons why you're afraid. Okay? If you operate on the basis of love, okay, I test you out. We do it. If it works, we progress. If it doesn't work, we're on to the next person. And the cost of living based on fear is high. The cost of living based on trust is also high. The rewards are different. That's the thing. And you will get to a point